Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark with the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1927 silent epic historical film Napoleon. Hey, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not used to that rousing voice of acceptance that you just gave me. If this is your first time viewing this channel, I am reviewing every movie in this book, the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. Napoleon is a 5.5-hour epic film that was directed by Abel Gance. Now, his vision was to do 6 of these movies, but he ran out of money early on and was only able to finish one. And when you watch this movie, you can definitely see how he ran out of, because it is ambitious, it is on such a large scale, and is so much more extra than any movie you will probably ever see from the 1920s. It is famous for its work and its camera work and what it's able to do with the camera. It's the first, and I think maybe the only movie to ever use polyvision, which is a sort of widescreen. I don't think widescreen was really that prevalent until like the 50s, and this was the first movie to ever do it, and it looks absolutely amazing. It is gorgeous. It's the last 20 minutes of the movie, and it is the easily the best part of the movie. I wish they could have afforded to do the whole thing in polyvision, because it is just gorgeous. Now, besides polyvision, they also do fast cutting, close-ups, handheld cameras, including one that seems like is on a horse, which is crazy because they didn't do handheld cameras back then, and he does it all the time in this movie, like it's an everyday thing. Shooting on location, multiple exposure superimpositions, underwater cameras, and kaleidoscope images. There's a scene in this movie where they put a camera on some sort of swing system, and at the same time Napoleon is on a boat, and while he's on the boat there's like an underwater camera happening here, but the swinging camera is through a crowd, and you're supposed to see the crowd as if they were also on a boat. You're supposed to think of them as on the boat with Napoleon, it seems like, and you do. It is done so well that you actually believe that it's on a boat. The camera in the water is spectacular. The handheld camera on the horse is amazing. I mean, the camera work in this movie is beautiful. It definitely deserves to be famous for it, because he's inventing new things as he goes. He's doing things that no one has ever done before. It is just crazy, the vision and the technology. He is so far ahead of his time when it comes to what he's doing with this camera in this movie. It is spectacular. Besides that, the gentleman who plays Napoleon, I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. I've tried a couple times, but I just can't get it. He is fantastic in this movie. Absolutely amazing. In fact, he is so good that when he's not on screen, I'm a little uninterested kind of in what's going on. Like, I'm thinking to myself, where is the guy? Where is Napoleon? Why isn't he not on screen? Isn't this movie about Napoleon? Why am I doing a whole act that's like an hour of Josephine? Why? I know eventually they get married. It doesn't happen in this movie. And there's a love story that has to start to come together. It doesn't seem like it really comes together in this movie, but I don't want to see her on screen. I want to see Napoleon the whole time. So when this movie starts, Napoleon is very young. It is 1783. I also want to preface this by saying that I know really nothing about Napoleon going into this. Very little. Like, my knowledge of Napoleon is elementary school level, that you definitely, it feels like you need a very good knowledge of the people in Napoleon's life to truly understand this movie, which means I didn't truly really understand it. So in the beginning, we have a young Napoleon who's in military school, and he is involved in a snowball fight in which he is greatly outnumbered. Now, this is a theme that you will see throughout the movie. Every time he's in some sort of battle, it seems like he's outnumbered, and he's the one who needs to come up with a plan as to how to win this fight. This is basically a love letter to Napoleon, talking about how much of a genius he is and how much France needed him, how he was beloved, how everyone wanted him to fight the battles, basically. At some point, towards the end of the movie, he is this famous person that is renowned in combat, and basically everyone wants him at the beginning. He's just like an artillery guy who kind of raises through the ranks, but it's basically a love letter to Napoleon, it seems like. So he's a little kid and he's trying to figure out how to win the snowball fight with fewer men than the other side. Now, of course, he does win. After he wins the snowball fight, he's in class, and the teacher and the textbooks are talking bad about Corsica. I think that's how it's pronounced, where Napoleon is from. So he gets very upset and says that he wants to bring dignity basically back to Corsica, and how he wants everyone to stop talking poorly about them. And now the next act is, or the next part of the movie, is about the French Revolution. This part for me was the hardest to get through because I understood basically nothing. Now there's three characters who are introduced, who are Danton, Morantz, and Robespierre, I believe. They are the leaders at the time. They are very famous. I have no idea who they are at all. All I know is that in this part of the movie there's a bunch of chaos, and Napoleon wants to bring things in order and have it be no more chaos. This was very hard to get through. This part of the movie was quite a chore. They throw a lot of these names at you. There's a lot of title cards that are telling you things but not explaining anything. Like, this general met this general at this place and they talked about this, but you don't know like exactly why they're doing it really. You don't know where it's going, essentially, until the next title card comes, and it kind of leads you in that direction. But it's very difficult to follow. At least for me, it was quite a chore. The Act 2, I think it's considered, is where the battle scenes happen. This is incredible. The battle scenes in this movie are on a very large scale. There's all kinds of there's like a red tint to the screen, which kind of makes it hard to see a little bit. But the battle scenes are epic. It really shows Napoleon going from how good he is at being this artilleryman and strategizing, and why he's so important to the army and why he's so important to his country, and why they will eventually want him to kind of lead the strategy going forth, because he comes up with these plans, these battle plans, and everyone else thinks they're absolutely ridiculous because in their mind they make no sense. They're ridiculous. It's not cookie cutter what people would normally do in a battle, and he goes through with it anyway and ends up becoming this genius plan that takes everyone by surprise, because he's the only one smart enough who can think outside the box and do things that are different. And throughout the movie, everyone says, "Wow, who is that guy? What is he doing? That's stupid. We don't want to follow that. We don't want to do that. We got to go with the plan. We got to go with how things are usually done." And he ends up doing it his way, and it's the right way, and he's a genius, and love letter to Napoleon, essentially. So, but these battle scenes are spectacular, and watching him rise through the ranks and actually watching him outsmart people was pretty cool. I don't know if this is just a propaganda film. This isn't actually how things happened, but it's cool watching it transpire anyway. The third act was the worst, I think, and that is basically the love story of Napoleon and Josephine, which has some weird stuff in it, really weird scenes, very confusing. Didn't care for the love story, didn't care for Josephine's character. It was a slog to get through. I almost couldn't complete the entire movie because I just wanted to fast forward and not see this act. I thought it was so boring, but I got through it anyway. And then the fourth act is when Napoleon starts to go into Italy, to attack Italy. Easily the best act because this is the one with polyvision. Not the whole act has polyvision, but the last 20 minutes of it, and it makes the entire movie, to be honest. All the other camera stuff is fantastic, but the last 20 minutes is really what makes this a spectacular film, and it's impossible not to watch. It's impossible not to give your full attention to it, not to be fully engrossed by it. It is absolutely amazing. I always get nervous when I review these type of movies because Napoleon is one that cinephiles really love. It's one that film historians especially love. If you go on YouTube and you try to find reviews of this movie, they're all glowing reviews about how everything is great and there's not a single bad thing about this movie. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. It is cinema gold. It is the blueprint for what cinema should be from the silent era. Everyone raves about it. I agree that the camera work in this movie is fantastic. The fact that they're inventing new things with the camera, they're trying new things that no one has ever seen before, and they're succeeding greatly at it, is absolutely phenomenal. They definitely knew what they were doing. They were well ahead of their time. The movie looks stunning. Every part of the cinematography is great. The colored lenses that they use are fantastic. It's held up very well. I know there was a gentleman. It was hard to find decent copies of this movie for a long time, but there was this gentleman who devoted his entire life to finding different segments of this movie and putting them together and coming up with like a really great version of it. And I think it took him like 40 years or something to piece together this movie and come up with the version that we have today. And it was like a lifelong goal, you know. And it shows. It's really fantastic. It looks great. It's just so confusing to me because I don't understand Napoleon's history. I don't know who these people are. I really think you have to go in there with a lot of knowledge of this time period because it doesn't hold your hand with any historical stuff. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't give you any real information to help explain stuff. I feel like you really have to know what's going on, otherwise you get lost really fast, which I did, and I was drowning for a lot of it, where I was lost and I just could not find my place and I could not figure out what was going on, and I could not. I felt like I had a broad picture, but the specifics weren't there, the details weren't there, and it was really hard to follow. And like I said, I really like fear going into some of these movies and reviewing them because I feel like I'm alone on an island where I don't understand this movie, but I loved it visually. I love the acting from the guy who played Napoleon. I thought he did a fantastic job. I thought for 5.5 hours it dragged a little bit. I think there are people out there who will tell you that this movie flies by, that there's not like 1 minute that's slow or 1 minute that's boring. I disagree. I thought that a lot of it did drag. I thought that some of it was kind of boring, especially the parts I didn't understand. But I mean, I still will give it an 8.5 out of 10, just because of how visually stunning it is, and like I said, how they tried new things and succeeded, and the polyvision part is beautiful. It's not a bad movie. It's 5.5 hours and you feel it. At least I did, and it is. I don't think it's that accessible for the normal person who's not like a cinephile, or a normal person who is not a history buff. It's going to be really hard for the average person to get to this movie and enjoy it and watch it, which is what I'm coming from, because I have no educational background in film. I'm just like a regular person who watches movies. But I still give it an 8.5 out of 10. I still appreciate what they did, and it was still visually unmatched. There's nothing in the 1920s that's going to match it. I still have like 8 movies left, but I can't imagine anything being as visually important as this one was. So thank you, 8.5 out of 10. Hope you join me for my next review.